Well, how are you? Hadn't seen you in a long time. Glad you stopped by, but I gotta tell you, this is not the way I would have wanted you to see the garden. Well, I know it's been some time since you've been by, but the last time you were here, I planted this whole thing using that fancy cedar. And I've been back through here a couple times using a real nice double wheel hoe as well. I'm gonna have to show that to you another time. But this is not the way the garden was ever supposed to look. This is supposed to be full and lush, and there's supposed to be kale and collards between all of the rows that you saw me plant before, and instead this is what we've got. So what happened? Well, suffice to say, if you're going to grow commercially, there's probably a good reason why most of the time you've got people who grow animals and people who grow vegetables and fruits. We had an unfortunate combining of the two. The ducks got loose and they came through here and just mowed the majority of this down. We've probably only harvested about 2-3 heads of lettuces and about a half dozen carrots. So if you look around, you can tell just how much damage was done by the ducks, because this was all coming up. We had a nice row of spinach and all the lettuce was full. And the only thing it really looks like that they didn't touch was this row of carrots. I mean, you can see all the carrot tops going down the row, but otherwise they completely wrecked it. I also ran into a big frustration because this is not how I really wanted to prepare the soil. Before we ever got around to planting in here, I wanted to put down tons of chicken manure, and I contacted our state poultry association and literally told them, I want to pay one of your members for poop. And after 3 different phone calls and not getting any information back, I had to give up. And basically the only thing this got amended with was organic blood meal. I really wanted to put more organic material into here, but my composting isn't going as great as it ought to, because I'm not putting the time into it that it needs, and the soil is suffering for it. So this is why it looks this way. We're supposed to have cover between all of these rows because there's supposed to be kale and collards growing everywhere, with the ones we were going to harvest after the first couple frosts being the ones where the drip lines are, and it just didn't turn out that way. So now I've got some pretty bare soil and some really cruddy crops. But what did we do about it? Well, we're having some roast duck for dinner tonight. So why don't you come along with me? We're going to see if we can pick up a couple carrots, and while we're at it, we will go check out that potato container, because we have had a couple frosts and the potato has died off. It came back. You might remember we looked at it and we were surprised on how well the other potato towers actually produced a couple potatoes, and this big blue container did the best. And so we wanted to see if it came back, just how much more will we get. So we're having roast duck, carrots, and potatoes for dinner. So we're going to pick a couple of these carrots. Don't expect them to be any big whoppers, but we're going to pick some carrots and then we'll go check out the potato container. Not a bad first pull. Sure, I've grown a lot since the last time we harvested a couple, huh? Woo! I think mass-wise, that's probably the biggest carrot we've ever grown here. We've had about 3 nights below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and yeah, we've still got pollinators buzzing around. Whoa. Well, you know, it's pretty obvious part of when you make a decision to till or not. When you're talking about a root crop, you can tell the tilling really helped. I mean, I have never, that just beat out what I just said was our biggest one ever, by a good measure. We have never been able to get a carrot to grow that deep and that good here. Obviously, the tilling did at least help with that. So we're going to kind of give you a tour since it's been such a long time since we made a video. You noticed the beehive when you came in on the property today. This is an area that I specifically want to move to be, or to bring to be our apiary. I want to turn this into our apiary. So it has been planted heavily with a perennial white clover and a couple other things, but the clover is clearly winning out. I put some specific kind of German chamomile. It's a like a oh, what's the right word for it? It can take being walked on. That's supposedly in there as well, but obviously the clover's winning out, especially for the season. So we're going to put some risers in over here and hopefully just start racking and stacking beehives, because I've had a lot of people locally start asking me when we're going to get honey again. We got a 5.5 gallons off of the hive earlier in the year, and then for a bunch of different reasons never really got back into the hive. And even though there is a honey super on it, it's now so cold that it's kind of a risk to go into the hive. So we pretty much are stuck with what honey we have until spring. So if we're going to keep getting the honey that we want and supply people's demand, then this needs to get expanded out, and this is where it's going to be. I like this spot for a couple different reasons. As a beekeeper, it generally stays in the sun. I can have my hives facing east over here. As somebody who wants to get into agritourism, it's out of the way, so somebody who's allergic to bees doesn't have to feel intimidated by the bees being on the property. I've got a good amount of space, and there's some permaculture reasons. Just, well, I mean, bees are really a pretty easy to get along with thing. I don't have to worry about fences like the ducks getting out into the garden. You know, the darn bees will go as far as they need to get what they need. I just have to have some place where it's convenient for me to get to the hives a couple times a year. So this is going to be that spot, and hopefully you'll see it develop come springtime. So let's go check out the potato container now. All right, so this is where this container has unceremoniously sat for the last couple months. You can see it died out a couple weeks ago when we had 2 nights of frost in a row. So let's just get to looking here. I suppose I ought to just dump the thing and look for potatoes that way like everybody else does, but I mean, if you can't be yourself. Let's see. Well, I tell you this much, the first thing I'm noticing is, despite having put in some extra potting material, I'm not getting any potatoes any up higher. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Have y'all met Angel yet? You haven't met Angel yet. This is Jennifer's new dog. She's learning how to be a service dog, and part of that here means learning to be a farm dog. So she is awfully curious about everything that's going on. Hey, that's my dinner. Well, this is not boding well. Despite how good they were looking, there are no potatoes near the top of this. I think we definitely proved the fact that you have to have the right, oh, look at there, we got a worm. That's a good start. Look at there. Woo, look at them. Always like seeing them on the property, especially in pairs. I think we definitely proved that you got to have the right variety. People were calling them determinate and indeterminate, even though I've never seen a potato sold that way commercially. Yeah, see, we're getting way down here in the bottom is where we're finding our little new red potatoes. There's none way up top, even though that's about 8 inches from the top of the container to where I'm actually finding the potatoes. So there weren't any side shoots off putting on new roots. So knowing that, we got to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to drag this out, and we're just going to dump it and see what we get. All right, let's see what we get. There's one. Goodness, look at that one. Pretty good for a red potato. Oh, all the wigglers are way down here too. They're liking this wet, sandy soil down in the bottom. That's kind of compact down there. It got awfully sandy. It's like all the sand settled to the bottom or something. I don't think we're gonna find any down any further. Well, despite the drain holes in the side of the container, this thing held a ton of moisture. Boy, I tell you, between worms and carrots, we're seeing all the biggest ones I've ever seen on the property today. Well, I'm just going to go back through this, make sure I didn't miss anything that's worth turning into supper. Get the worms that are bound to be in here, and hopefully they're eggs, back into the container, and this container will probably just end up going into the compost pile, because I could use the worms over there and what little organic material is in this. Well, that's nothing to write home about, so it's kind of a shame that we made a YouTube video out of it, but that's going to be our potatoes for the night. And the container we thought did the best. I'll be honest, I'm kind of thinking we probably didn't get any more potatoes than what we had to begin with. All those were down in the bottom. They probably just resprouted, and they never probably put out any more tubers than what we've already got. So, but that'll go with our duck tonight, and that'll close us out for potatoes on the year. But judging from these carrots, looks like we'll have a good carrot harvest all winter. So let's just take you around and show you how the animals are doing, and probably the biggest challenge we have on the property right now. So this was desperate measure with the ducks. We had to figure out some way to contain them. Clipping their wings is really just a futile effort when you have 100+ ducks, and so what we decided to do was use this shade cloth. It's a greenhouse shade cloth on the top of this that was given to us by Leesville Aquaponics, and use that as a bird net and keep the ducks contained. So this was a suitable area because I want to plant it at some point, so we are kind of considering, you know, the concentration of their manure and using that in the future. But obviously with this setup, we're basically having to rely on grains to feed them, and that's not the situation we want to be in. So there's going to be some growing to try to figure this out next year. It's probably going to be a combination of everything from changing our paddocking system, if you will, for the ducks to the sheer number of ducks that we choose to grow. And it emphasizes our need to have an actual pond on the property if we're going to grow at this level, to have this many ducks. It's one thing to have a dozen ducks and just let them use a kiddie pool. It's another when you've got over 100 and you're trying to use the water not just as liquid for them to drink, but as a life-giving place for bugs to grow to provide food for them. So that's what we need the pond for. We need the pond so that the the life that's in the water can actually grow, so that the ducks can get their nutrition from that and not just from foraging on pasture. So we've already put away over 20 ducks into the freezer. Some of these are more than ready to go, and it's just been a matter of not having the time. Either when the time was there, the weather was wrong, or we were not in town, or we just haven't had the time at all. So some of them are growing up a little bit more. Some of them still need a bit more growing out before they're worth actually harvesting. So we have gone through and marked probably the majority, if not all, of the ones we're going to keep over winter to be the breeding stock for next year. And we just used simple zip ties, ordered some multicolor zip ties, and marked one of the legs of each of the ducks that we plan on keeping. And that's our real simple way of making sure who we process and who we don't. So next stop is the pigs. Let's go check on them. Okay, so this is where we're keeping the pigs right now, and this was actually the goat pen yesterday. I just switched the pigs over to it for a couple reasons. I'll show you a picture overlaying where the pigs were, and you can see they've completely annihilated all the vegetation in that pen. Well, here where the goats were, the goats have browsed all of the leaves off of the saplings, but would not, for the life of us, touch the grass. So we brought the pigs over here because they like to eat the pasture grass, and so we're making more use out of the area. Now, if you're a dedicated viewer, then the first thing coming to mind right now is, Jared, what happened to the rotational grazing that you showed us? Well, we ran into some problems. We ran into the fact that at the time the pigs were too small and they were getting out of this electric net fence. They could just go right under it and didn't care two hoots about it. To just complications. The horse will stay inside of this, but she will get too close to it and get a hoof in it and then completely tear it down. We have one of these that is about half of it is completely trash because the horse just got tangled up in it, spooked, and tore it all to shreds. So this net was not a good one solution for all of the animals we were trying to put through it. So until such time that we can fix that issue, what we're doing is just moving the animals around to different paddocks that we already have set up. So this is where the goats were, and now the pigs are in it, and we'll be moving the goats around to a couple places, and when the goats come back to here, then we're just gonna keep moving them around. I guess that's all I can really explain. So this is where the goats are right now, and less than 24 hours ago, this was green. These are a bunch of oh goodness, it just escaped me. Yeah, these were a bunch of Chinese privet, all the little ones right up front here. And I mean, you put the goats in here and they just stripped it in less than a day, just stripped the whole thing. So you saw me with Tommy Alderman from Alderman Farms one day put this together. It's just a bunch of cattle panel being held together by some hog rings and tied together here for the access for people to get in. And we're just gonna keep taking this little contraption and go wrap it around individual areas. There's another section over there where there's some Chinese privet growing, and just move them around and make as much use of the fact that we still have greenery that the goats can consume on the property, and make the most out of that as we can. So the goats are going to be a portable thing for a time being. So let's go over and that's your opinion. Let's go talk about the different poultry that we've got other than the ducks. All right, so again, if you're a dedicated viewer, you've seen when we originally put this structure up and everything else. And right now the chickens are loose. And first thought might come to your mind is, if he had the ducks completely destroy his garden, why in the world are the chickens out? Well, I felt bad. I saw a couple of them that were getting picked on. You know, they have the feathers on the tip of on the end of their back getting plucked off, and usually that's a sign of overcrowding and stress. And so we decided to let them out of the coop which when I say the coop, I'm talking strictly the part right up against the shed here, where we're having them lay the eggs. And of course, the first thing they do is start flying over the fence because this does not have a poultry net on it. So I don't know, we're gonna have to get them back in here because it's just not safe out there. We've had a lot of pictures on the deer camera of a coyote out in the woods, and I really don't want these guys encouraging the coyote all the way up here next to the house. So as far as any changes are concerned, I don't think we've ever talked to you guys about our new geese. We let a friend borrow our feather plucker, and in exchange he offered us a couple of African geese. So we now have one male and one female African geese, and the female has started laying eggs. So we've got a nest in here, and we're gonna let her just keep racking up the eggs, and who knows, maybe by spring we'll have some goslings running around. But that's about all that's really changed over here. I will say we have a lot more roosters than we expected to. I don't know, we ordered like 2 roosters and we have like 6. I don't know how else to explain it. So we've got a lot of boys that are going to end up being called stew in the nearby future. So let's go take a look at the rabbits. So we've never really filmed the rabbits from this side before, but the other side is slam packed with hay to get us through the winter. So it's just easier to talk to you from the back side of the cages. Which is why you see this here, is to stop the horse from leaning over and eating the hay that's on top of the cages for the rabbits. So as far as how they're doing, we have had another kidding, but it was a pretty small one. She gave birth to 4 babies, and one of them did not make it. So you can see them here in this cage. There's one right here and 2 over in the corner on top of each other. Well, now they're all in the corner. And probably the most interesting thing is the genetics is just funny. You remember last time I mentioned that we had specifically mated her with a almost entirely black rabbit, and we got all very dark black, if you like, furred rabbits. And now these ones have everything from like a brown to gray to little marks of white. One has a star right in the middle of its head, one has a white sock and things like that. So it's obviously just a crapshoot with the genes in there on what you end up getting when you mix a black rabbit with a white rabbit. And these guys will probably stick around until the new year, and it'll be about time to process them then. We do have high hopes on what we want to do with rabbits, but at the same time try to keep it a little more manageable, learn lessons that we did from the ducks. And what I mean by that is we've always had a dream of maybe having like a full-size rabbit processing facility, but in seeing how much effort it's been with the ducks and running into the ability to not really free range them because it's just too many ducks per acre, the ratio's wrong, that the more rabbits we have is the more feed it costs. And is that really the kind of situation we want to get in, where if we keep it small like this, then it provides some meat for our family and it's enjoyable to actually maintain it. So we'll see where it goes on from here, but really nothing as far as the system has changed. We're still using a gravity fed waterer and they're doing pretty well. So let me tell you a couple things about the property, and we'll kind of wrap this up. So I told you I was going to talk to you about the most challenging thing on the property right now, and I'm sitting in it. These are the swales inside of the island, if you will, on the driveway. And early in spring 2015, these were covered in crimson clover, and were doing fantastic. But that clover, being an annual, died out when it started to warm up, and then this began to grow in its place. This grass is easily noticeable for a couple different of its features. First off, in summer when it goes to seed, there's these nice plumes of silvery seed heads that come on it. It's also noticeable because the tips come to a very sharp point, a nice hardened little point on it. But to give it dead away on what it is, if you look down the vein, it is off-centered on the leaf. And that cinches that this is indeed Kogan grass. and Kogan grass is listed as one of the most invasive grasses, and from what I keep being told, nothing will eat it. I can't bring the horse over here, the horse isn't going to want to eat it, the pigs aren't going to want to eat it, and so forth. Now that's what I'm being told, and a part of me says I've got to at least try to bring animals to try to maintain this, because it has completely overwhelmed the swales. Every single place where we tried to make an effort of either cover cropping or mulching, the Kogan grass has just come straight through. Around each of the fruit trees, we had multiple layers of cardboard and paper, compost and cover crop, and now all we have is 2-foot tall Kogan grass, and it's a disaster. So this entire area is just going to have to get reworked some way and somehow. Worst case scenario, that means that everything has to be taken up. We have to start completely from scratch to try and get rid of the Kogan grass. To get rid of the grass that's going to choke out and outgrow every other thing here. You can leave all the comments that you like and tell me to put cardboard and mulch and compost down. It doesn't work. I don't know if somebody out there is suppressing Kogan grass by using cardboard and mulch. They must be using 20 layers of regular size cardboard and 2 feet worth of mulch, because everything we have ever put on top of this, which is about up to 6 inches worth of material, it just goes straight through. It just goes straight through it. We had cardboard, compost, mulch, and everything goes good for a couple months, and then out of nowhere you see a bunch of the Kogan grass pop up, and then it just starts taking over the area. So now we're concerned that it's choking out the fruit trees. It has obviously inundated the entire swale system here, and so this is, in my opinion, the most challenging thing to figure out what we're going to do with on the property. As you can see, a bunch of comfrey is about the only thing fighting for its life anymore. So if you have a solution to this, something you know has worked, you have tried it yourself, or you can reference me to an actual person who has done it, then I would be interested in hearing that, because every solution from the Extension Office and the National Resource Convention Service or Conservation Service says to use herbicide. That is their solution for this, is cover everything else up and spray the foliage with herbicide over and over and over again until it dies. And obviously I don't want to resort to that. So let me know what you think in the comments below. So you might be asking yourself, Jared, what are you actually going to do about all these problems that you're having? Well, I think step one is we have to recognize that we have a containment issue, and we needed to be able to identify our actual property lines, legally identified property lines, and be able to start putting up containment fencing for the animals so that we can put them through the property properly and maintain them the way they need to be maintained. So if you look here, you can see the stake on the ground, and you may be able to see some pink flags scattered out through the woods to get you down to the next stake. We had a survey done of the actual property line. We already knew where the pins were, the corner pins, but for me to put up a fence going 800 feet through the rocky, rolly woods like this was just not going to be accurate. So we had them come in and put stakes, and now we know a much better location where the property line is. We can come a few feet off of that so that we can bush hog between a fence and the property line itself and start putting in fences that can actually contain the animals. And the general idea being a containment fence around the entire property, and then that we can paddock off in between and do rotational grazing throughout the property. That said, our current discussions are that we want to go ahead and scale back our dreams, and rather than try to focus on doing large amounts of growing to be able to sell commercially, that we'll just focus on ourselves. That was always the initial goal, but always with the idea in the back of the mind of, well, yes, we may grow enough carrots to feed ourselves, but let's grow 10 times that much, and that way we have plenty to sell at the same time. Now we're really just going to be worried about what does it take to take care of ourselves. So next year when we breed ducks, we're probably not going to shoot to breed about 250, I think is probably how much we had hatch out this year. That's just not going to be a goal. Now if we have pre-sales and people have told us, I want to buy 10 ducklings from you, then we can let those clutches hatch. Otherwise we'll probably be consuming the eggs rather than waiting for the eggs to hatch. So look forward to that, and we're probably going to take care of the property differently, or rather, better said, we're going to make a different focus on the property. So rather than you looking to see swales just full of fruit and vegetables, we're probably going to turn it more into an animal management area with just a couple sections that have fruits and vegetables. So look forward to that. Sorry it's been so long since we had an update. I hope the tour kind of helped answer some questions on what might be going on. And just stick around. We do have a lot of things in the works, working with a couple other websites and helping them with some projects. And once those become official and released, I'll be happy to share them with you. Looking forward to expanding the apiary and making something out of that. And goodness, so many other projects going on right now. Oh, I don't think I mentioned, as a part of this property line system, about half of our property line was already barbed wired by our neighbor. He has some cows on the property behind me here, but the rest of it was not. And so what we did is we took a single strand polywire electric fence and put it around the rest of the property. And so now Jennifer's horse has about probably 6 of our 7 acres worth of grazing to go through the property. So the more of the property, if we took a walk through the whole thing, you'd see there's a lot more of it going back to pasture rather than it just being full canopy forest. So that's another thing that's been done. But anyway, thank you all for coming back again. Thank you for still watching the channel. Let me know what you're looking forward to. What questions did I not answer that you'd like to see in another video? Thank you all for stopping by. We'll see you next time.